Happy Friday. Let's get to chapter 12. Summary, summarizing the sphere of influence. What exactly does this mean? Every day, a man showed up next to Chris's desk. The man was visiting his girlfriend. His girlfriend was his colleague. When Chris asked his name, what he does, he said that he's Gary from Bear Stearns. At this time, Chris did not know that Bear Stearns was not a potential account for his boss, Dean Whittier. Dean tells clients about new products and new offerings to individual investors. Bear Stearns, on the other hand, are large institutions that puts together a lot of this, a lot of that in the most profitable way possible. It's all about building relationships, building a sphere of influence. So when he asked his boss for a higher salary, he was told no. So Chris went over to Bear Stearns, realized that this is where he's supposed to be. The timing is perfect. Because you can see, 1980s, a lot of people are becoming millionaires overnight. And lots of people are moving into Silicon Valley. They're making a lot of money overnight. So he told Gary, and Gary asked for Chris's starting salary. So Chris said $5,000 a month. Gary said, deal, at a 50% commission as long as Chris makes at least double that amount in sales. And he starts in 2 weeks. So it wasn't difficult for Chris to give Dean Whittier his 2 weeks notice to quit. The first day of the new job, Chris met his new colleagues. His phone call came from a senior partner, Bear Stearns. He got his first lesson. The clients are people who have an advanced degree, are not people who have an advanced degree in business administration. Instead, the clients are poor, smart, and want to become wealthy. Over the next year, Chris and his son moved back from Oakland to San Francisco, this time in an apartment in the Hayes District. The apartment contains rented furniture, hardwood floors, 2 bedrooms, 1 big living room, and a fireplace. In front of their apartment was a bus stop. This was a San Francisco dream. He doesn't need to commute from Oakland any longer. Also, he can afford a taxi cab to get to and from work every day. When Gary realized that Chris only has 1 suit, he gave him extra money to buy additional suits. That way, Chris wears a different outfit on consecutive work days. He also used the extra money to buy his son a new bed, new clothes, new toys. When he went to the movie theater to watch the film Ghostbusters, his son got scared and wanted his seatbelt on. Another time, they watched Prince in the film Purple Rain. They stayed in the movie house too long because his son had an accident. When Chris told him to let him know when he has to use the restroom, he realized that children do not want to make their parents mad. Instead, they want their parents to be happy. They watched this film together so many times that Chris bumped into one of his new colleagues, Mike. Chris thought he could become best friends with Mike and possibly a future business partner. As the economy ramped up, each person focused on their niche product. One person focused on thrifts, another person insurance companies, another person bank trust department, etc. Chris learned how to get his calls returned and how to cultivate relationships based on the information he has that his competitors do not have. After a person returned his calls, he made certain to follow up, find out what his clients want to buy, what they have been buying, and their thoughts about technology stock. While Gary ran the office, Marsha ran Gary. Marsha was in charge of the offices in San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Hong Kong. Marsha looked over Chris's call list of 200 people. Marsha told Chris that's not how the big guys do it. Instead, they use their sphere of influence. Although it took Chris 2 decades to figure out what that means, Chris had to make those 200 calls, get past the gatekeepers, secretaries, and other people who get in the way of making a sale. One of the clients that he gained at this time was a Texas oil millionaire. Although he was a little racist, Chris put his feelings aside, helped him make money. Things were going well, and the millionaire said that he'll stop by the San Francisco office to meet him in person. When he arrived, his face turned, air quotes, white. All of a sudden, he realized he was making racist jokes to a black guy on the phone. But without missing a beat, Chris went over the paperwork, detailed the millions the millionaire was making with Chris's help. The millionaire saw the light. It's not white, it's not black, it's all about the green, making money. The millionaire stopped doing business with other brokerage firms and focused only on Bear Stearns and Chris. He was Chris's biggest account and making $200,000 for Bear Stearns. The millionaire stopped making racist jokes over the phone. Every day, the first person Chris called was him. Although he did not need to move to New York, that was actually his dream job. It was inevitable that he would one day buy that red Ferrari, move to Chicago as well. He even went on to buy Michael Jordan's black Ferrari and change the license plate to read, not MJ. When he told his colleagues that Bear Stearns had moved to New York, they told him that he's crazy. By then, he had not only one child to support, but two. 9 months after Jackie visited Chris and their son at the Flop House in San Francisco, she was expecting their second child, a baby girl named Jacintha. Although Chris did entertain the thought of reconciliation, they have two children that both are responsible for. Now he has the money to support four of them. Chris realized, this is a bad idea. So instead, he proposed letting her take care of both their children, since this new job will require him to work long hours with a lot of overtime at the office. She accepted the compromise. He sent her the money to take care of both kids. However, the first few weeks without his son were rough on Chris. Before Chris moved to New York, he made a cold call to Las Vegas. He secured an account with a person who has millions of shares in the Golden Nugget. This was the break he needed. Bear Stearns specialized in restricted stock sales. Chris offered to help him minimize the bite. After the call, Chris put together the right people in Bear Stearns. This made him an overnight star. This gave Chris instant credibility with New York. Not only that, the man from Las Vegas only talked with Chris. He would not talk with anybody else. Although he and his colleagues were competitive with each other, all of them cared about each other. New York City was San Francisco on steroids. It gave Chris a new challenge. Rather than write tickets, they focused on a fee-based business that would set up income of millions of dollars a year. For example, a client has a bank account that contains hundreds of millions of dollars. Your job is to make $5 million a year. When Marshall talked about a sphere of influence, that's what he meant. Chris's job was to get the asset management business. Then he got the bad news. The old tycoon that made racist jokes over the phone, he passed away. And the account went with his beneficiaries. And during the last few minutes of his life, he did say that he was worried about the market in the future. So Chris did the right thing. He picked up the phone, sold the last share of that man's portfolio, pocketed $60,000 commission for all the racist jokes he ever said to Chris on the phone. With his biggest account gone, Chris finally decided to start his fee-based service, so he made a cold call to Ohio. Bob from the Great American Insurance Company answered the phone. Since they were already doing business with Bear Stearns, Chris made certain with his boss that it would be okay for him to take that account. His boss told him it would be okay as long as Chris gives him weekly updates on how the account's doing. After 2 weeks, Chris made $25,000. When he told his boss during the weekly update, his boss told Chris that he's fired. Since Chris could not figure out what to say, his boss laughed and told him to have a nice day. Chris breathed a sigh of relief. He learned that his boss has a very interesting sense of humor. It also taught Chris that the competition is intense. Over the next several months, Chris came up with a strategy on how he will go after asset management and fee-based businesses. While he was in New York, he realized what market he really wants to go into and that the market is in Chicago. He also wants to start with clients who are African American. After hits and misses, he took the giant leap of faith in 1987. When he told his colleagues that he's quitting and moved to Chicago, none of them were surprised. And he found an investor to help him out. The largest minority-owned insurance company, North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance Company. In Chicago, he started his own brokerage firm, Gardner & Company. In addition to helping his clients, he also invested money in educators, as well as proponents in public education and literacy. He He also became a philanthropist by returning a percentage of his sales back into the public sector. The latter was inspired by the Reverend who gave him and Chris and his son a place to stay when they were homeless in San Francisco. The other reason for moving to Chicago, so his 2 children can grow up near their relatives in nearby Milwaukee. He broke the cycle of fatherless children in his family history. His company works with pension funds and assets such as National Education Association. He's now able to live his dream to travel and see the world. He remembers how far he has come. He appreciates every step of the way. So in a couple of weeks, in a couple of days, I will summarize the next chapter. Questions, comments, constructive criticisms, asking for clarification, let me know. And I shall see you next week in a couple of days. Yeah. Take care. See ya.